Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and I'm so happy to have you here today.
And I'm Julia, your co-host. It's always great to join you all for another fun and helpful English learning conversation.
That's right. Today, we're talking about something that almost every English learner dreams about: how to speak like a native.
Yes, I think this is one of the most common goals for English learners. Many people want to sound natural, confident, and fluent, just like native English speakers.
Exactly. But here's the truth: speaking like a native doesn't mean you have to sound perfect or lose your own accent. It's more about communicating naturally and sounding confident.
Right. And that's what we're going to explore in this episode. We'll talk about what speaking like a native really means, the key features of native-like English, common mistakes to avoid, and lots of practical tips you can start using today.
So, if you've ever thought, how can I sound more natural when I speak English? Or, how can I improve my pronunciation and expressions? This episode is just for you.
Stay with us until the end because we'll share some easy daily practices that will help you move closer to speaking English like a native.
All right then, let's get started. All right, Julia, before we jump into the tips, let's start with a simple question. What does speaking like a native actually mean?
That's a really good question, Jason. Many learners think that speaking like a native means having a perfect American or British accent, but that's not true at all.
Exactly. You don't need to copy a native accent to sound natural. Speaking like a native really means communicating smoothly, using the right rhythm, tone, and expressions, just like how native speakers talk in real life.
Yes, it's about sounding natural, not sounding perfect. When you speak naturally, people can understand you easily and your English sounds more real, more alive.
Right. And one more thing, speaking like a native is also about confidence. It's when you don't stop after every word to think, and you feel relaxed while talking.
That's true. Native-like speaking is about flow and connection. Even if you have a little accent, that's perfectly fine. What matters is how comfortable and clear your speech is.
So, the goal is not to erase your accent or copy someone else. It's to make your English sound smooth, natural, and confident.
Exactly. And the good news is anyone can do it with the right practice and mindset.
I love that. Now that we understand what speaking like a native really means, let's talk about the key features that make native speakers sound so natural.
Yes, this is the exciting part. Let's break it down.
So, Julia, now that we know what speaking like a native really means, let's talk about what makes native speakers sound so natural. What are the key features?
Good question, Jason. I think there are a few important ones. The first is pronunciation and word stress. Native speakers don't pronounce every word slowly or clearly like in a textbook. They stress some words more than others.
Right. For example, when a native speaker says, "I don't know," the stress is on don't, not on I or no. That's what gives English its rhythm and music.
Exactly. The second feature is connected speech. Native speakers often join words together when they speak. For example, instead of saying want to, they say wanna, or going to becomes gonna.
Yes. And this is something learners can easily practice by listening carefully to native conversations and repeating what they hear.
Another feature is intonation, the rise and fall of the voice. It shows emotion and helps the listener understand meaning. For example, when we ask a question, our voice goes up. Are you ready?
That's so true. And finally, native speakers often use natural expressions, short phrases like, I guess, or that's cool. These make speech sound more real.
Yes, and the good thing is learners can build these habits slowly. With listening, practice, and time, these features will start to become natural too.
Well said, Julia. Up next, let's talk about some common mistakes learners make when they try too hard to sound native.
Oh yes, that's an important one. Let's get into it.
All right, Julia. We've talked about the key features of native-like English. But I know many learners make mistakes when they try too hard to sound like a native. What do you see most often?
Oh, there are a few common ones, Jason. The first is overusing slang or idioms. Many learners try to use every phrase they know, but if it doesn't fit naturally, it sounds awkward.
Yes, I've heard learners say things like, "I'm totally lit for studying," when it doesn't make sense. Using slang correctly takes time and context.
Exactly. Another mistake is copying a native accent too much. Some learners focus only on accent and ignore clarity. Speaking clearly is more important than sounding exactly like an American or British person.
Right? And there's also speaking too fast. Learners think native speakers talk super fast, so they rush their words and make mistakes. It's better to speak slowly and naturally.
Another one is focusing too much on grammar. Yes, grammar is important, but if you pause constantly to think about every rule, your speech won't flow naturally.
Great points, Julia. So, the key takeaway here is, don't try to force it. Focus on clarity, natural rhythm, and confidence, not perfection.
Absolutely. With time and practice, your English will start to sound more native-like naturally.
Perfect. Now, let's move on to some practical ways to improve pronunciation and accent naturally. All right, Julia, now that we know the common mistakes, let's talk about something very important, how to improve pronunciation and accent naturally.
Yes, many learners worry about their accent, but the good news is you can sound clearer and more natural without changing your accent completely.
Exactly. The first tip is listening carefully and repeating. Listen to native speakers in podcasts, YouTube videos, or movies, and try to copy how they speak.
Right. Another great technique is shadowing. That's when you listen to a sentence and repeat it immediately, trying to match the rhythm, stress, and intonation.
Yes, and don't forget practicing short sentences. Start with simple sentences and focus on how the words connect, instead of trying long, complicated sentences.
And one more tip, record your own voice. Listen to yourself and compare it with native speakers. This helps you notice small mistakes and improve step by step.
Exactly. Remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about clarity and natural flow. With regular practice, your pronunciation will get better day by day.
That's right. Little consistent practice every day is much better than practicing for hours only once in a while.
Absolutely. Now, let's move on to another important part, learning native expressions and phrasal verbs. Julia, one thing that really makes English sound natural is using common expressions and phrasal verbs. Can you explain this for our listeners?
Of course! Native speakers often use short expressions and phrasal verbs instead of long formal sentences. These make speech sound smoother and more natural.
Right. For example, instead of saying, "I will spend time with my friends," a native speaker might say, "I'll hang out with my friends."
Exactly. Or instead of "I will understand this later," you might hear "I'll figure it out later." These phrases are very common in daily English.
And learning these little expressions doesn't just improve your speaking, it also helps you understand native speakers better.
Yes, my tip for learners is to pick 2 to 3 new expressions every week. Practice them in sentences and try using them in conversations. Small steps make a big difference.
That's a great tip, Julia. All right, next we'll talk about something every learner should focus on: the role of listening in speaking like a native. Julia, we've talked a lot about speaking, but I think listening is just as important. How does listening help learners speak like a native?
Absolutely, Jason. Listening is the foundation of speaking. When you listen carefully to native speakers, you start to notice pronunciation, rhythm, intonation, and common expressions.
Right. It's like learning the music of the language. If you only study grammar or words, your speech might sound robotic. Listening helps you sound more natural.
Exactly. And it's not just about understanding words. Listening helps you hear how sentences flow together, how words are connected, and which words are stressed.
So, learners should listen to things like podcasts, movies, YouTube videos, or even songs. Then, try to repeat what they hear.
Yes, this is called active listening. Try to imitate the sounds, rhythm, and tone. Even 10 to 15 minutes a day can make a big difference over time.
That's great advice. Listening regularly really improves your pronunciation, fluency, and confidence.
Exactly, and when we combine listening with speaking practice, that's when learners start to sound more native-like.
Perfect. Now, let's move on to practical steps: how to practice speaking like a native in daily life. Julia, we've learned a lot so far about sounding natural, but how can learners actually practice speaking like a native every day?
Great question, Jason. The key is consistent daily practice, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Here are a few simple steps.
First, listen daily. Spend 10 to 15 minutes listening to podcasts, YouTube videos, or movies with native speakers. Pay attention to how they pronounce words and connect sentences.
Second, shadowing. Repeat what you hear immediately after the speaker. Try to copy their rhythm, intonation, and expressions.
Third, record yourself. Speak a few sentences, then listen and compare with native speakers. This helps you notice small mistakes and improve gradually.
Fourth, use new phrases and expressions in short sentences. Try to speak them in your own examples, either aloud or in conversation.
And finally, practice speaking with others' friends, online speaking groups, or even AI chatbots. The more you speak, the more natural your English becomes.
Exactly. The secret is small, consistent steps every day. Over time, your speech will start to flow just like a native's.
Perfect. Now, let's talk about something just as important: confidence and mindset for native-like speaking. Julia, we've talked a lot about pronunciation, expressions, and practice, but I think one of the most important things is confidence. What do you think?
Absolutely, Jason. Confidence is everything. Even if your pronunciation isn't perfect, speaking with confidence makes your English sound natural and clear.
Yes, many learners hesitate because they're afraid of making mistakes or being judged. But here's the secret: native speakers make mistakes too, and it's completely normal.
Exactly. So the first step is to accept mistakes as part of learning. Don't be afraid to speak, even if it's not perfect.
The second step is to practice speaking regularly, even if it's just a few sentences every day. The more you speak, the more your confidence grows.
And finally, remember to focus on communication, not perfection. Your goal is to express yourself clearly and naturally, not to sound exactly like a native speaker.
That's a great mindset. With the right attitude and consistent practice, anyone can start sounding more native-like over time.
Absolutely. Confidence plus practice equals natural, fluent English.
Perfect. Next, Let's listen to some real-life examples and mini-practice to see this in action. All right, Julia, now it's time for some real-life examples. Let's show our listeners how native-like English really sounds.
Yes, let's start with a simple sentence. Instead of saying, I want to go to the park, a native speaker might say, I want to go to the park.
Exactly. And notice the rhythm the words flow together naturally, instead of being spoken separately.
Here's another example. Instead of saying, I will figure out the problem, a native speaker might say, I'll figure it out. It's shorter, smoother, and sounds natural.
Great! Now, let's do a quick mini-practice. Listeners, repeat after us. I want to go to the park.
I want to go to the park.
I'll figure it out later.
I'll figure it out later. Perfect. Keep practicing sentences like this every day. It's small steps like these that help your English sound more native-like over time.
Exactly. And don't worry about making mistakes, just focus on repeating and speaking naturally.
Yes, little by little your rhythm, pronunciation, and expressions will improve.
All right. Now that we've practiced, let's wrap up with some key takeaways and motivation for our listeners. Well, Julia, we've covered a lot today, from pronunciation and expressions to listening, practice, and confidence.
Yes, and the most important thing to remember is, speaking like a native is not about perfection. It's about communicating naturally, sounding confident, and enjoying the process.
Exactly. Here are a few quick takeaways for our listeners. Focus on natural rhythm and connected speech. Learn and use common expressions and phrasal verbs. Practice listening and repeating every day. Build confidence and don't fear mistakes.
Yes, and remember, small, consistent steps make a huge difference. Every sentence you practice brings you closer to sounding more native-like.
Absolutely. Keep practicing, stay motivated, and enjoy the journey of learning English.
You've got this. Every day is an opportunity to improve, so don't give up.
Perfect. Now let's finish with our outro and a quick call to action. All right, everyone. That's a wrap for today's episode on how to speak like a native.
We hope you found these tips helpful and that you're ready to practice a little every day. Remember, speaking naturally takes time, but you can do it with consistency and confidence.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with your friends who are learning English too.
Yes, and leave a comment below telling us your favorite phrase or expression you learned today. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Keep practicing, stay confident, and we'll see you in the next episode of the English Learning Podcast.